our course, and I'm really delighted to be here with you again, even in this unbelievably interesting time. So just in general, as people are popping in, welcome Kieran. How are you all doing? Just in general, how's it? Some thumbs up? Okay. Thumbs up. Oh, good. Okay.
Oh,
So are there some that it's not such a thumbs up? Some people don't want to say if it's not a thumbs up, but Amanda's a little, okay, yep, up and down. Let's hope we can also support the people that are struggling. And lovely to see you, June. Although you look a little thin to me. I know you've been working on your health, so many prayers for you. It's lovely to see you. So one of the things I notice is when we do these classes, it's really helpful, I find, to think about, to bring all those other people here with us. Some of them are among us right now in the class, in the little boxes you see. Some of them are people you know, some of them may be parts of your family, and people in your neighborhoods who are not doing well. There's a lot of people struggling, so this is a wonderful way to make this pocket of positivity here, and those ripples will go out. Those ripples will go out to many, many people around you. And so I think it's wonderful to participate in a group about the spiritual teacher. I did want to mention that this course is normally taught in sessions. So we have 4 2-hour sessions. I'm not planning to take a break in the sessions, but we are going to do some breakout work in the sessions. And obviously on Zoom, if you're desperate and have to go to the bathroom, you can, take a break like that. But often it interrupts the flow. And so I thought it would be better to just keep going. And there might be sometimes we end a little earlier or something like that. But for the most part, we've got 4 2-hour sessions. So let me just to start, what I'd like to do for a moment, let's start with some meditation. And there may, again, be some people that are still popping in. So that way we'll be able to get everybody in together. And just find whatever comfortable space you have where you're sitting. And for a lot of you, this is later in your day. So we've most probably set a motivation already, have done some practice, and just find a comfortable space for your body. Making sure your spine is as extended as possible. That's the most important part. And it's absolutely fine to sit in a chair. And if you are in a chair with your feet down, have your feet straight down with the soles on the ground or a cushion, but feeling that grounding with the earth. And if you're in a more cross-legged position, again, on whatever seat or cushion, feel that grounding again with the earth, and feel as if there are roots coming from the earth, supporting us. As you lightly close your eyes, bringing the gaze inward. And just allow a deepening of your inhalation and your exhalation. And as you feel that support of the earth, the roots are not holding you down in any leaden way. They're simply nurturing and supporting. And that's available to you anytime you choose. So if you feel a bit off balance at some point in your day, which happens often, see if you can familiarize yourself more and more from your meditation practice. If you can establish that consistent practice so that you return immediately right there, you realize, take a deep breath and a deep exhalation, and the earth is supporting me. And every time you inhale now, bring some more space into any areas of discomfort in your body, allowing them to open and soften. And on the exhalation, allow that tension to release. And once again, reorienting a good motivation. So we're going to reestablish that and just thinking in this tradition, how great if I could really benefit all living beings. And all kinds of situations arise throughout your day. And sometimes you feel stuck. A friend lost a loved one. You don't know what to say. There's nothing to say. But imagine if you were a Buddha and knew exactly how to act every single moment, exactly how to respond, how to be in the most beneficial way. So if you'd like to include that idea in your motivation, that could we fully wake up and become fully enlightened beings, then we're completely unlimited, fully empowered in benefiting all living beings. Feel free to include that and set a motivation right now for our time together and all the events of the rest of your day. I'd just like for you to reflect for a moment as we begin on your ideas about the spiritual teacher. First of all, what does that even mean to you? Do you already have a teacher? What's your relationship like with them? Is it helpful for you, not helpful? Have you run into trouble with teachers? What does that look like for you? Have you heard things about teachers from other people? What kind of experiences come up? Just reflect. Just reflect for a few moments. And also what you feel you'd like to get out of this time, this course. And please relax right now, and slowly, when you're ready, open your eyes. And here's something I've been doing coming out of a meditation session is, can you savor for a moment? So what happens is we finish a session, we come out of the session, and we reach for a drink and we reach for our phone and we get up and what if you just have a minute to just notice how you feel, or notice what bubbled up? Was there some big bubble that came up? What's happening? Because what I'm also noticing, and some of you may experience this, we've been in quarantine now. I mean, on and off quarantine. We've been in this situation for about 6 months. In the beginning, it was very frightening for people. They didn't know what was going to happen. And now people have settled in to some things, and each country's slightly different. The country I'm in, it's been a really pretty terrible time for our country, and I don't think it's going to get better yet, especially with this election coming. But what happened, so some people have contacted me, I do these private consults with people on Zoom, and so people started telling me how lazy they feel and guilty because they just binge watched major, hours they spent watching this garbage on TV or whatever. It's not all garbage, but whatever they were spending time doing. And I said, so how do you feel after that? So if you finish binge watching or doing some activity that you're labeling not so beneficial, and later you feel guilty about it, as soon as you finish the activity, notice how you feel. That most people say, I know the binge watchers were telling me their neck hurt, their body hurt, their back hurt, they felt numb, they were spaced out, they ate too much, they couldn't focus on anything. Okay, well, that tells you something. Is that how you want to feel a lot of the day? And then people tell me if they're meditating or they finish reading the book they wanted to read, they did that course, they've been studying some Dharma, they helped a friend, they volunteered for this or that. And if you just notice for a moment after that, how do you feel? They say, oh, it's uplifting. I feel good. I feel like I'm in sync. I'm energized, people tell me. So, I do some volunteer work right now because I'm not traveling, and I'm suddenly a good volunteer again because I'm around. So I'm driving diapers and Chromebooks to refugee families in the Philadelphia area where I live. And it's a contactless, it's one of the easiest ways to volunteer. You just need a car. And you drop off and you hand this box to somebody of their Chromebook. Can you imagine a new refugee from West Africa? They know nothing. They're in a neighborhood. The neighborhoods they're in, there's not very good, very urban. And you pass off this connection to them for the world, that they can connect to the world. They can then get their kids into some learning program. Now they're going to need Wi-Fi to do it, but some of them have gotten that established. There's things like that. And I just need to give them the hardware to do it. And it's very exciting, and even dropping off diapers. And I get back in my car right after, and I have this little wow, just to see the smile on the guy's face. I'm like, that was great. It's really nothing. It's really a very small thing. So notice those moments to try, because you'll want to start to increase those activities that are making you feel in sync like that. So it can be really helpful. Okay, spiritual teacher. This course considers the role of the spiritual teacher, how to find the right teacher, how do we relate to that teacher once we think we found a teacher, how do I establish a good connection with them, even if I rarely see them, and skillful ways to proceed with if difficulties arise, pressure from peers and other people that are on different paths and have different teachers or have had issues with the teacher. So we're going to discuss things like this. And there will be time later for questions and answers like that. So hopefully you'll have a better understanding of, how do I find a teacher, And what do I do when I find them? And what does a teacher even mean? And so let's look at, we're also going to cover, do we need a teacher? Why do we need a teacher if we do? How do we choose a teacher? What are the qualities about that make possibly someone a qualified teacher? Are there any, what makes me an appropriate student or disciple? What does Guru devotion even mean? Which is, it's a very important thing in Tibetan Buddhism. Why is it so important? The benefit of properly devoting to your teacher, we're going to talk about that. The disadvantages if you improperly act with the teacher, and reversing one's devotion in a sense. How to devote in what they say in thought and action. That's part of the Lam Rim. What to do if things go wrong with the teacher. How to deal with mistakes you see in your teacher. Unethical behavior that you see. What happens if you don't want to follow the Guru's advice? Like that. And I will talk also about my personal relationship with my teachers and how it's benefited. Sometimes I think it's a little bit more to the point like that than some of the more traditional, things like that. Okay. So I fortunately, just some of you know me, know a bit about me. I fortunately came to the Dharma without knowing anything about Guru devotion, and met one teacher very early, right in the beginning of that path. So I was never looking. I know there's many students, many people I know who are really, I want to find that person. How do I find that person? So I never had that experience. So, but I can tell you different things. And the teacher is there really like a magnet, pulling you, trying to hook you. They know if they're highly realized and on an incredibly beneficial path, like fortunately, most of my teachers are, many have passed away now like that in the form that I met them in, but they're like a magnet trying to draw you. And what happens is we put barriers up in the way. Our ego, family pressure, what our friends and family say, our own independent nature of how we would like to direct and guide our lives. And none of that is really wrong. It's just a matter if you find somebody qualified who you start to have some awareness that they may, capital K, know, really know something, really know the truth, really know how best to guide you out of suffering. And if you find and align yourself with someone like that, and you're going to check thoroughly, it's a very important part of Guru devotion is to check thoroughly. And you start having more faith in them, and I'll talk about that as well, okay? And then you go to these other beings, your friends and family, when you have a problem, and you ask them for help and advice. And we say, what do you think I should do? I'm having this trouble in my relationship. Should I leave him? I'm having trouble with my job. I just got a job offer across the country. Should I relocate? But my kids are here. All these life decisions come up. There's many problems. And we're going to go to these people that maybe don't capital K know. They have some life experience. They have some wisdom. You have a very deep relationship with them and they love you and you care for each other. Okay? But they're only going to advise, generally, from those places, not full experiential knowledge, okay, of what really on a deeper level can help you transform your negative mind into something glorious, to help you dismantle delusional states, to help you purify all the negativities that are keeping you not free to get you to freedom. Can your friends and family do that for you and really help take care of your mind? That's the role of the qualified guru, qualified teacher. So, but the thing is, we don't really have that context in our cultures. And in our cultures, unfortunately, what did get going were things like cults, false gurus, people who say, if you want to be happy, follow me. If you really want happiness, you have to give me all your money and never see your family again. And we've had a number of those that have sprang up, as you know, in the States. And I think there's been some in England and they can be really, really dangerous. So we've had those kind of experiences. So when you hear the word guru, and I could say this in my culture, people get uncomfortable. People get uncomfortable. I was amazed how many years ago, a friend of mine was friends with a folk musician you may have heard of named Arlo Guthrie. This is Woody Guthrie's son. And he's been a folk musician for years and years. And he and my friend that I went to this concert with, they both have a spiritual guru, a Hindu teacher, okay, Arlo Guthrie as well. And so the teacher's since died, but she was an American born. And we went to the concert and he was playing, and it was a huge auditorium, whatever, full of people. And then he said, I wrote this song for my guru. And this was in Northern California, if you can imagine, which is a very open-minded liberal space. And I could feel in the audience the kind of how people, like there was a murmuring, and it just felt like people were really uncomfortable with the term guru. So we have these built-in preconceived notions of this is dangerous. This is dangerous. So, and in Tibetan Buddhism, this is the crux of the path. This is the heart of the path, I'll say. The most important thing is the guru. So we've come to a very different relationship, and it can be really challenging for us because of that relationship. So, okay. So as far as why we need a spiritual teacher, and let me just talk a little bit more about some of the workings of this class. I also want to recommend a couple books. So Stuart has created a Google document, and Stuart, I don't know if you want to put that in the chat to everyone. There's a document you can go on to, and you can access the readings from this specific module of Discovering Buddhism. You can access the meditations, which I'll give you an exercise each week to please do that meditation. And it gives you a deeper experience of this course if you do all of those assignments and all the readings. You'll get much more out of it. Thank you. Stuart's just posted that. Okay. And there's a couple of other books I want to recommend that are beautiful and really, really helpful.
Can I just interrupt? Because it's a rather difficult URL. I will email it out as well, so maybe don't have to worry about capturing it here and now.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to bring these other books up that one of them is just so beautiful. Here we go. So some of you have read this, The Heart of the Path. Okay, Seeing the Guru as Buddha. The Heart of the Path is a Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive book from our archive in Boston. The archive manages all of the teachings of Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Lama Yeshe. And this book is by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. It came out in 2009. It's a pretty hefty book, but it is really everything you need to know about Guru devotion in this tradition, especially if you're a disciple of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I can't stress enough about reading it. It's a really beautiful, beautiful book. And you can read parts of it as well. Turn to certain parts, pick up a few pages. Again, The Heart of the Path, it's called. And I'm actually just going to put these right in the chat. So, and these are recommended for this course, The Heart of the Path. And then the second book is Alex Berzin's book, Wise Teacher, Wise Student, Tibetan Approaches to a Healthy Relationship. These are actually recommended for this module. And again, Wise Teacher, Wise Student, Tibetan Approaches to a Healthy Relationship, that was put out by Snow Lion a year after The Heart of the Path 2010. And it was earlier relating to a spiritual teacher. Some of you may have read that. And it's got some really great things for Westerners as well. So those are a couple things I just wanted to mention. Okay. So let me talk about the word guru. Guru, Lama, Geshe. Let me give you these different terms that we hear, what do they actually mean? And guru, we hear it in Hindi. They use it a lot, the predominant language in India. From the Sanskrit, guru, gu, darkness. And I'll even say delusion, ignorance, like that. I have to be careful in the States because the Tibetan system that I learned in was all about getting rid of negativities that were dark and getting all the negativities come out of you in dark light, and all the bliss and happiness is all the white light, and now it's seen as very racist. So some years ago, I was informed about a Tonglen meditation I led in California. So I don't lead anymore with dark and white light, but this is just the literal gu could be darkness. And ru is the one who dispels, the one who dispels. What are they dispelling? The darkness. Okay, what are they dispelling? The ignorance. The guru's real role in the Tibetan tradition is to rid your mind permanently of ignorance, because ignorance creates suffering for you. And I've never felt that more with Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He is probably the most ardent guru that I have. I have many teachers, the most kind of desperate to rid us of our suffering. That's his job. Once you kind of devote to him and you know you have this relationship, he's just so much trying to push us into circumstances that often we don't like. Often we say we don't want to do it. And one example I'll give is, what do you do if the teacher gives you something? Now, if you ask the teacher for advice, if you ask a teacher for advice, so it's coming from your side, seeking some help, seeking some advice, you need to follow the advice they give you, or it starts creating obstacles on your path. If you're not asking for their advice and they suggest something, as Rinpoche's done for me at times, okay, and both cases, you can be very sincere and you can say, I'm really having trouble thinking of going to run that center. I don't really want to do retreats, so that would really be a struggle for me. Just speak sincerely to them. If you don't think of it at the time and you're kind of overwhelmed and awed by the visit, later you digest and think, and then discuss it with them again or write them a note about why this would be difficult for you to follow. You just be sincere rather than throwing out the advice, totally intending to disregard the advice, or deciding you're going to go to another guru so you can get different advice. That is only going to create obstacles in your path. Okay. So many years ago, one example I give is, years ago, I was living and working at our San Francisco center called Seichen Ling. And it was run, and it's still run, by this wonderful nun, Venerable Carol Karate. And she had a house in the center of San Francisco, and we ran it in the house. And she gave me a little room in the basement, and she gave me free rent, and I lived there and basically helped her manage the center because she had a full-time job as an engineer. So I ran the center, and then after 3 years, we kind of were deciding the center needed to be in a separate kind of public space, to move it out of her house. And I was feeling to move out, and things were changing. And I did tried to get a message to Rinpoche about what, I'm looking to do this, I'm moving out of the mandala, we might say. In my mind, getting free, okay, of those responsibilities. And I waited and waited and finally got a message back from Rinpoche to go and be the director of Vajrapani Institute in California. And this is a large retreat center. As many of you have heard, it was just under threat of the fires in California, which are so awful right now. Fortunately, the center is currently safe, but our retreat property, Shine land, or land of Kamabadi, in the central part of California, further south, is now under threat of fire, another fire. So Rinpoche told me to go to Vajrapani, to run Vajrapani. I had no interest at all. I'd been there many times. I love Vajrapani, but I didn't want to be the director. But in my heart, somehow, because I had asked the advice, I knew it was the next thing I needed to do. I knew I had to go there. And so in some ways, I would say a bit reluctantly, I went there. but I went with taking full responsibility. I was up for the task. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just knew that was the next thing on my spiritual path. So what the guru's trying to do is get us in touch with that inner guru, I would say, absolute guru, the inner voice, to help us develop the wisdom and compassion so that we're not always dependent on this external guru. That's part of their job, that you develop your own wisdom, compassion, and begin to have a rich, consistent practice that will move you along in the right ways, you know. And so some of us who may have be around for many, many years, and today I just realized, I think it's the 30-some anniversary of when I took refuge is today. Maybe 32 years or 35 years, I can't remember how many years, but something like that, it's today. And so you start to have some idea of what's good on your path and what's not so good, and trying to follow that advice. And then I check in with Rinpoche periodically. And sometimes Rinpoche will just say to me, great. But he'll make one adjustment. He'll say, great, but then he'll just say, oh, when you do that retreat, in the afternoons, do this session, do this practice. Something I wouldn't have thought about to include. And when I did include it, it was actually the perfect balance for my mind to include that. Really helpful. So I went to Vajrapani, ended up being director over 8 years. And I have to say it was one of the most transformative things for my mind. Most transformative things for my mind. I don't know if my mind would have made that progression anyway without going to Vajrapani. Maybe it would have. I can't say. But for me, it was, I felt every night when I went to sleep there, I felt like I know I'm doing the best thing I can do right now. Because first of all, I followed the advice of my guru. And I believe my guru is a highly realized person. They're qualified, okay? And in addition, so now I have the blessings from them because I followed the advice. So I'm not just doing a job, and I didn't show up at Vajrapani like some of the other staff people, that it was just their idea of what they wanted to do. We had staff people, some lovely people I worked with over the years, and there's people that take a job because they're hired. Oh, I think it'd be really cool to live in the Redwoods at this cool Buddhist center. Like, it's their own agenda. Mine wasn't my own agenda at all. I had something else entirely planned that I was going to do. Okay. So, but you get the blessings as a result. And I felt that every single night when I went to sleep, like every morning when I woke up, are these blessings. So it's really kind of powerful when you can. So again, moving me from the trappings of my ignorance, that's guru. Okay. And then they are there to, and this is from the Upanishads, dispelling the darkness of ignorance, dispelling, the one who takes you out of the darkness, like that. If we want to look at Lama, and guru as well, also implies something weighty, something heavy. So that they are heavy. It's not about a physical thing that they're fat. It's they're heavy with realizations. That's really guru, Lama in Tibetan. Lama, one who is heavy with realizations. That's the kind of teacher that we want. You know. Now, how do I know that about them? We're going to talk about that in a moment. And then Geshe, which is normally Geshe or Geshe Ma, the female of that, is usually tacked on as a title to like an equivalent of a PhD, doctorate degree. And then you become a Geshe or Geshe Ma. And now they're graduating some Geshe Ma, some of the nuns as well. And that is more about virtuous friend. Virtuous friend. So it was really Gewei Shenyen, like that. And then they shortened it into Geshe, of the virtuous friend. So you do want to think about, of your companions, of your friends, your family, would you label some of them virtuous friends? Because it is also implying a higher level of knowledge and realization, ideally, a higher level of knowledge and realization. So not everyone titled Geshe or Geshe Ma has that level of realization. And having traveled a lot to to teach all over the world. And I meet a lot of the geshes and many in India and some at our centers. And they're a wide variety of personality, as you know. And some of them are incredible scholars. A Larampa Geshe is highest honors. And this is like Geshe Gelek, who is the Geshe for our North Carolina center on the east coast of the States. Geshe Gelek is a Larampa Geshe. Geshe Tsering, who used to be at Jamyang, London, that many of you know. He's a high-level scholar. He's a brilliant, brilliant mind. So these kind of geshes, very high-level scholar. It doesn't always associate with realizations, but they certainly have a great foundation from which to build those realizations. I know some other geshes who don't have the scholarly background, but they have the good heart. Incredibly giving people plugged into their communities. Some beautiful, beautiful beings like that. So geshe. So just to explain some of these points of terminology. Okay. So why do we need a spiritual teacher? Let's explore this for a moment. First of all, look at every aspect of your life. Every aspect of your life. In order to get good at something, you had to rely first on somebody who knew more about that thing that could teach you, could show you. It could be something mundane. And I'll give you an example is I'm in my family's house. So the basement, a small basement, above ground basement, was my father's electronics workshop for 40 years. He passed away over a year ago. And slowly, eventually we're going to sell this house, but right now it's my base and I don't have any other place to live. And I could go back to a center, but I'm not doing that just yet. So the centers I was going to go back to are in California, and I'm not sure that's the best option right now. So we've cleaned out the basement of all the electronics equipment and really moved some of it out, and the room needs to be painted. And it's a very rough surface of the walls, and there's holes all over the walls and marks and things from this electronics workshop for years. And my brother said to me, he goes, when you want to do that to fill the holes, I'll show you how to do it. Now I've done painting myself, spackling, all those kind of things, but this kind of surface I don't know how to do. So sure enough, I'm definitely going to get him to come over and show me, to teach me. Okay, because he's already done all the short, he knows how to do it. It's going to shortcut my path. That's the guru. You're going to get somebody with more knowledge to learn anything that you learned. Okay, a book is one thing. A book is one thing. And I know there's a joke now about the millennial generation, which may be some of you. Millennials go to YouTube if they want to learn how to fix something in the house, and they put the YouTube video on. Well, it's brilliant. Okay, but there's somebody on the YouTube video teaching them. Book knowledge, I find, doesn't do it alone. The book can explain, but it's different when you have somebody showing you and telling you, and they can do it in person with someone where somebody says, no, not over there. Turn your hand to the right and turn your body this way. And that's how you hit the tennis ball. Okay, so we've all been there with teachers. We needed teachers to do basically anything. Okay. So you can reflect for a moment on different teachers you've had in your life. We're going to do some breakout work in a moment. I'm going to put you into breakout groups. And think about if you didn't have a certain teacher at one point for something, how did that exercise go for you without the teacher? If you wouldn't have any knowledge on how to eat, for instance, how to wash yourself, how to dress yourself. Any of you who play musical instruments, how would it have been without the teacher? Any of you who trained in athletics, how would it be without the coach or the teacher? What about your professional career? What would it have been like to study calculus without your teacher? Okay, so now we're talking about, to move a little deeper into something we've never done before, we've never succeeded in breaking free of our suffering. Well, how about that? Who's going to help us with that? Okay. Now we meet people in our community, and I know when we started out, my niece just turned 29. She's at the beach with her boyfriend for a few days. And, you know, I was saying, what are you going to do? We're going to go to this bar, and then we're going to dance, and then we're going to do this, and then it's all a very temporal, sensory, external experience of bringing pleasure. Absolutely. We all go there. We all have times like that. I'm going to listen to this music now. That makes me feel good. I like this song. And we're going to go to this club, and we're going to see who's there. And so we spend a lot of our lives kind of reaching for the external gratification to alleviate our suffering. We've talked to friends and families when we get into trouble and more suffering arises, when there's a bigger problem, when you've lost a loved one, when you lost your job. The beginning of the COVID experience for people, right? That's when our spiritual centers are booming. Everybody turns and suddenly gets religious, you know, when they get scared. Okay. Have you been able to undo the suffering? What has worked for you permanently, right? Okay, so normally we're still trying to break free from suffering. And most of us that got ourselves here to the Dharma have explored that, wow, all those external things, they can temporarily relieve the suffering for a bit. There is some immediate gratification and immediate pleasure. And the ice cream sure does taste good, absolutely. But then later the problem arises again. The problem's still there. So now what do I do? Okay. So traveling, if you're traveling to a place you've never been, you want to rely on those who have been there before us. That's the role of the guru. That's the role of the qualified teacher. Otherwise, it could be a big disaster. For instance, if you want to find the treasure in the treasure chest, just to use that as an analogy, I'd be much more interested in getting the map from somebody who's been there. And this is kind of what the guru does. They identify, and it's really clear between you and them what the treasure is. Enlightenment. They're like, you want to be free? And you also get enamored with some of their qualities. If you see His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and His Holiness, for instance, as you know, well, he's now doing some live teachings on Zoom, on YouTube that you can live stream, and they're all available. You can check his schedule on his site. And it's really wonderful for those of you that can't travel to India, you can now plug into these and you can watch recordings of them if you missed it live. It's perfectly fine. And His Holiness is someone who's lost his country and had to stand by to witness over 1 million of his country people being slaughtered and imprisoned and tortured and really horrible. And he shows up with grace. He shows up, balanced mind, happy, always available to help beings. So what that does is you witness that over and over again. Maybe have been to some teachings in person. Maybe you've been to a retreat with Lama Zopa Rinpoche or another great teacher. And there's something intriguing about them that gets your attention, right? And you start turning towards that, of looking, checking up. You know, His Holiness has lost his country. He still shows up bright, and he's got more problems than any of us. But he still is giving, 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 always turned, directed outward to somebody else. How can he help someone else? That got my attention about Lama Zopa Rinpoche when I first wasn't even a Buddhist and followed him with 60 disciples of his in 1987 to a trip to Tibet. And I watched him. I didn't know anything about guru. I wasn't looking for a guru. I was very satisfied in my own religion. And I watched him day in, day out for 3 weeks. He took us around to all these sites, and I saw things I couldn't really explain. I saw quality in him just from my limited view that I wanted more of. I wanted to have that quality myself. I wanted to develop that quality. I thought he knew something about how to develop that quality. That was my own experience. So here's somebody, you've identified the treasure now, and they give you the map. Here's how you get there. That's their advice. That's their training. That could be the Lam Rim that we know of, the steps on the path to enlightenment. Could be a tantric empowerment. It could be doing this retreat or that retreat or serving at a center or teaching anything like that. There's many different aspects of the path. The path winds, the path goes across this creek. It goes under the tree branch. It goes way out into the desert and you're alone for a while. And then it comes back into this really busy place. And okay, so what happens is we get the map and there's the treasure. And the guru gives you a direction of the shortest way to the treasure. That's what they give you. And then you get to the tree and they're kind of saying, you want to go under the tree branch and go to the right. And then, but you see on the left, there's some really desirable fruit that you want to eat. So you make a left turn. This is our life. This is how we slow it down. This is how we create obstacles. And then sometimes we get frustrated, right? So who do we lash out at? The guru. We go, well, I don't know. I don't want this path. I don't want to do this. It takes, and then the other thing, it takes too long. Okay, well, this is a path of great effort. I'm sorry to inform you. Most of you know that. This is a path of great effort. But we know how to make great effort. Everybody tunes into these Zoom calls. Everybody's telling me I'm so busy. We know about effort. That's not an issue for us. Is your effort directed in a positive, beneficial way that's going to get you to freedom as quickly as possible? That's the effort we need to be making. Other effort? Enough already. We've had enough of that. Enough of the other effort. Okay. We're also looking for someone that we have some sort of connection to. You can't force, this is going to be my guru. You have to sit with, how does it feel? Okay. You need to go find different teachers. Right now, we're not meeting in person, so you can't do that in person. But before that, I would tell people, get yourself in front of some teachers and check out, how do you feel? Are they walking the walk? Are they practicing what they say? As much as you can check. Okay, you don't know about their private lives, but you get a sense of integrity, honesty, and you get a sense when somebody is really pulling, as we say, the wool over your eyes. You need to spend some time and check. So let's say when we go back into person, and when I said get yourself in front of a teacher, well, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, for instance, is leading some month-long or longer retreats every year now in person. He tries to do them at different parts of the world so different people can get there reasonably. There was one in Australia that's been rescheduled that was supposed to be in March. That might be one that you've been to before or want to attend again. It's supposed to be rescheduled for March or April. Again, with COVID, we'll just have to wait and see. There's another retreat on the East Coast of the United States called Light of the Path. Some of you have attended. Okay, it's now rescheduled for sometime, maybe August, September 2021. It's 1 month, but you can go for a weekend. You can go for a week, 2 weeks. You can go for whatever portion you'd like. There are sessions of prayers, sessions of practices. There's private, smaller teaching sessions, questions and answers, and different things. And then there'll be 1 or 2 sessions a day. Rinpoche shows up and teaches. So you get to sit in front of him. When I'm at these retreats in person, I just have to tell you the experience is, it feels like, and I don't really know for sure, but it's some cellular change for the positive. When I'm really sitting with my teacher, and Rinpoche is my main guru, I would say, a root guru, and I'll discuss that in the future. What does that mean? Okay, but I just feel like if I'm open to it and I'm really listening and putting into practice what he's saying and showing up at all the sessions and doing the practices, I feel some hugely beneficial experience in my mind. And what happens is we go to these retreats and you go for however long you go and you come back all inspired and renewed, and it lasts for a week or 2 or a month, and then it slowly fades again. And you get back into all your old habits, and it's normal. Okay, please don't beat yourself up. But the main thing is then make sure you sign up for something again. And maybe you have beautiful, beautiful Land of Joy in England. You have some wonderful teachers showing up there when it's open again, and go for 10 days. Very easy to get to from England. You can definitely do it. You don't have to cross any borders, and You're there, so you're really fortunate that you have this retreat property there and other teachers that come through your sessions. So now we're on Zoom meeting. So again, everybody, every highly qualified teacher in the world is on YouTube at some point. You find some name of a teacher, put them into YouTube search, watch their videos. What do you think about what they're saying? How does it feel for you? So you can explore that way as well, looking for teachers. I tend to eventually like to get in person with someone when I can, before I really take them as a teacher. So it's important from your side to make some effort. And I have to say, a lot of people are older now. They don't want to make effort. They don't want to travel to India. I get it. And they don't want to make the time for retreat in their lives. You know, there's all these other things telling you there's all these other things I'm busy with that I have to do. This is about your freedom, ultimate freedom. So you have to ask yourself, what's your relationship with freedom? You know, we are relatively free. Are you going to be okay when you're dying? Is everything going to be sorted when you're dying and you'll really be able to maximize your practice at that time and be peaceful without regrets? Think about that as well. I like to reflect on death and dying every day. So think about, am I ready for that time when everything else will be gone? If you have a slow death or old age or a disease or something, how's my mind? Is my mind ready for that? So all those excuses you made not to attend the retreat, not to do the practice, not to get that meditation space set up and things, those are the kind of things that are going to be there in your mind. And the practice will be there. So it's really important if you can. And you take time to find this person. You don't just jump because everybody's doing it. All the people, all my friends are with this teacher. That's really dangerous. All my friends are with this teacher. They think she's great. Everybody signed up. That's what everybody's doing now. This is the trend. This is the latest fad. You have to check. It's a relationship between you and the person alone, not anybody else. How do you feel about them? Are they authentic? Okay, so we're going to go to some breakout sessions. And what I'd like you to do, and then we're going to come back and talk about that. What I want you to discuss in the breakout groups, and let me just see, there's 20 people, because I was just going to leave Stuart and myself out, or Stuart, you can jump into a group. But what I thought to do is to make 6 groups of 3, and then a couple groups will have 4. Is that possible?
It is. I'll just change it. I've got everybody in 2s. I was
Thanks.
trying to...
And you're going to have 10 minutes, and you will get a warning at the end of that when you have a minute left. So when you are in the groups, let me give you a few guidelines right now. One of the main things is to practice active listening. Active listening. So again, we get excited where I need to speak. Some people feel that way, and I'm not really fully listening to you because I'm preparing what I'm going to say. I've got something better to say, or I really agree with you and I need to say that. So practice active listening, where let go your agenda, make sure the person, no interrupting, make sure the person is fully ended what they're saying, and think about when you do speak, is there benefit in what you're saying for others rather than just the ego gratification? Is there benefit, right? And also be conscious of the time. You can each watch your own time. If you have 10 minutes and you have 4 people, that gives you about 2 minutes each. And then you have a little bit of follow-up time to finish up. Okay, so you can have a little time for introduction, because it's really sweet to get to know some other people. Many of you know each other, but it's nice to introduce yourselves briefly, maybe just where you're from, like that. You may already know that about people. And then you have like 2 or 3 minutes. And if there's, let's see, if there's 3 people, you'll have about 3 minutes each, and then a little follow-up. So you can guide a bit like that. What I'd like you to discuss then is, first of all, what fears revolve for you around finding a teacher devoting to a teacher. Maybe you already have a teacher. You can talk a little bit about that experience for you when you wanted to find a teacher. How did you find them? A process, but what fears come up around that relationship? Okay, that's one of the main things I want you to discuss. And what do you think about freedom? What do you think about aligning yourself with someone who can bring you out of that freedom? What's your own passage with freedom? What does freedom mean to you? You know, we have relatively comfortable lives, so it makes it a little more challenging for us because we're not really in blatant suffering. But we've all had some blatant suffering of losing a loved one, having financial issues. The COVID quarantine for some people has been really difficult if you're quarantined alone and you're lonely. If you're sick, if you've gotten sick and you're still recovering, okay? Or you're quarantined with people that are driving you crazy. Your adult children have moved back in with you, and on one level it's lovely, and on another level now, you're really ready for them to get on. And if you happen to be a mother in that situation, many of the mothers I know have ended up just caregiving for everybody in the situation, even adult children, and they're cooking every night again. And they're not really happy with that. There's not a shared responsibility. So look at those situations. What does real freedom, ultimate freedom mean to you? How often are you experiencing that? Okay, so we're a little bit going to talk about freedom and fear, the two F words. Okay, is everybody clear? Everybody, let me just, okay. Everybody, okay. Is anybody not clear? Okay, we seem to be pretty good. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to go into our groups and then we're going to come back and we'll discuss. Thank you, Stuart. So I just want to open this up for a moment. Many of you have been doing Zoom for work and other courses. Any insights or surprises? And did you enjoy the breakouts? It's usually people enjoy getting together and meeting other people, even though you may be from the same area in the same group.
May I just say, I think for our group, it was too short. I don't think we were still really involved in what we were saying. And I think we could probably have done with double the time, but I don't know what the rest of the group, I think the rest of the group probably feels similarly. Just a comment.
No, that's a great comment. Sometimes it's better having it shorter because it really gets you thinking about things later. And I really like, because we have each week right now, is as much as time you could spend reflecting on this each week, because there will be a meditation I ask you to do that we're going to do in a little bit. So thank you, Barbara. I appreciate that. But sometimes it's better, you know, to have it a little bit shorter than, but we can make more time in the future if we need to. And this is a meaty thing about the fear that comes up in Guru devotion. There's a lot. So thank you. What other comments? Anything surprise you? And if people want to raise your hand, and then you can unmute. Anything new that you learned from different people, any new insights about Guru devotion that anyone would care to share? A very quiet group. Okay, what were you talking about then that you needed more time? Anybody care to say? What is coming up for people?
I can tell you what we needed more time. We just started on the topic because I knew that there were 4 of us in the group, and at least 3 of us had a similar experience of a teacher that there's a scandal about at the moment that we're involved with Tantra and so on, and what a challenge that was. And I presume that will be dealt with as you go along. Sure. And that we just started on that.
Yeah, so more it was around what your relationship with freedom is. So it's good in the breakout groups to try to stay on topic. But again, if you have other things to discuss, and also about what fears come up for you, and I'm sure that must have come up around the fears when there's the device.
Yeah, it was about fears.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. So we are going to talk about that as well. And in England, I know there's been some leftover from some serious things that even went on years ago. And just general karma around that. We all have some issues in the States. We certainly have issues around false gurus, and there's been some issues. And so one of the things people often say to me in general, just to start to discuss problems, but we're going to move in soon to the qualities of a guru so that we can avoid the problems, the qualities of a disciple. One of the things that comes up with when problems arise is the people say to me, oh, we heard about this Buddhist teacher and they, were having sex with somebody, or, they're Buddhists. So it's as if we are different than every other person on the planet just because we're Buddhist. So one thing is, as a Buddhist, and I'm just speak for myself right now, I'm not a Buddha, I'm a Buddhist. There's very big distinction for me. Buddha means you're perfect. Buddhist, I'm a Buddhist practitioner. I'm on the path to become a Buddha, but I'm not a Buddha yet. I'm not perfect. As a human being, I'm subject to mistakes. I am flawed as a human. I'm not laying a trip on myself. I'm just talking about reality. So what happens is I just want to remind people when they say that to me, and people came to me about, I had friends, non-Buddhists, that said when the Rohingya were being slaughtered in Burma and Myanmar by Buddhist monks, they're like, how can that be? And I'm like, well, they're Buddhist monks. It doesn't mean, it is unusual for practitioners, especially monks, who would devote themselves more to a lifestyle that is about practicing peace and caring for people. It is a bit unusual to be attacking people, but again, they're humans, and the nature of being a human is you suffer from imbalance and delusion in the mind, and sometimes you have more obscurations of that, which causes you to harm. A lot of us have been there where we've said a snippy remark to somebody, where we've had a lack of generosity in our thoughts towards people, like that. We still, as Buddhists, have those experiences. Generally, for most of us, I can't imagine us acting them out physically, okay? But I'm just curious right now, and I don't know how many of you might consider yourself aggressive drivers. If you drive a car, are any of you aggressive drivers? And I have been with Buddhists in their car, I'm not kidding, and somebody cuts in front of us and they're ready, their hand is going up and they're about to make a really rude gesture with their hand at this person. Buddhists. So there's an activity going on and what happens is it simply comes from familiarity. What your mind is familiar with. You've seen other people do it to you. You've been in cars with your family and friends when they do it. Giving somebody the finger, as we say. It's rude. It's a really rude gesture. But it's simply because your mind's familiar with that. What if we get our mind familiar with, allowing people to get in front of you in a kinder, gentler way, realizing this is a great practice of generosity and it's really not disturbing me. What if I do find myself a bit irritated because they didn't signal and they get in front of me, and what comes out of my mouth is Om Mani Padme Hum. That's what I'm familiar with. That's what I'm familiar with. We had, I've been in touch lately with a lot of my friends at the centers in California and some friends in the Pacific Northwest. It's all aflame right now. It's just been horrible. One of my friends nearly died the other day, getting stuck in fire all around her. It's just crazy. So, but we were also, I lived there many years and there were earthquakes. One big earthquake that actually affected Vajrapani heavily, damaged some buildings and things like that in 1989, a long time ago. And a lot of Buddhists were saying, so what was going on with your mind as the earthquake was hitting? We don't get warnings for earthquakes. It's sudden. So when something sudden happens for you, where's your mind? Is it with peace and happiness? Automatically? Is that what automatically comes? Okay. Because in the dying situation for you, it could get pretty gruesome at one point, unless your mind is aware of that situation. Naturally, it's going to come, and I'm ready, and I've been doing my practice, and that's what my mind's familiar with. I can do my Tonglen practice now. I can think about good thoughts about people, and I can meditate on emptiness. Is that where your mind goes, or does it go to something else? So we were discussing when the actual earthquake hit, It was a 15-second experience. Everything was shaking, right? I was actually at work. And where was your mind? And some people said their mind was, what was in their mind or what came out of their mouth was the S word for caca. Okay, you get the idea. So do you want to be saying that? Do you want to have that coming out of your mouth at the moment the building falls on your head? Because for the most chance, you're probably going to come back as a fly. Because flies are really attracted to caca, right? Or are you going to be O mani padme hum? Like, well, my coworkers are screaming right now. That was my experience. O mani padme hum. Like, could I think about them instead of like, oh my God, people freaking out? So you have to think about that. Where's your mind when you get the call that your friend passed away or your dad died? Or where does your mind go to? You know, extreme kind of hysteria, imbalance, or, you know, something more beneficial. Anything else about the little interlude of fear? Any fears that come up for people? And so one thing, I just wanted to conclude that part of, I will say to people, Buddhists are human beings and they suffer from delusion and they're not Buddhas yet necessarily. But we are going to talk more about specific teachers when they're manifesting mistake. Okay, Damsho, you're sharing. What is the file that you're sharing? Do you want to unmute and tell us what you've shared? And it's lovely to see you as well. Damsho's been our prayer-a-thons on Saturdays.
Oh, yes. And what an interesting one it was. I do apologize. I missed this one. No, when you said with the car, because that's sort of my forte, I used to do driver training. I have a little photo that I shared, hopefully with the group, of 3 little Tibetan monks sitting just above the radio, you know, and then the Heart Sutra. So I thought I'd share that because you brought the driving up. So it's just to create a nice, calm environment. So I thought maybe it helps a little bit to inspire people.
Thank you. So just to give you some, and we were talking about freedom. I'd imagine most of you feel relatively free. What about ultimate freedom? I think in some classes lately, somebody said, oh, it's too much trouble. Okay, just think about your dying moments. I know that this is not all about just my dying moments, but when I think about my dying moments, I don't know what they're going to be like. You know, I have some trepidation about it that I may not be ready, but it motivates me to get ready right now. It motivates my daily life. And it also helps me to feel more grateful of every moment that I am breathing right now, to fully be present as much as I can. I can't do it every moment, but I'm really trying to be there with my mind in its present, gracious, spacious place for myself and anyone I encounter, to be kind in that moment, to be kind. There's certainly a way to engage. Right now in the country I'm living in the United States, I sometimes think we might be on the verge of civil war. There's places it's getting very ugly. And I'm in a conservative area, and it's just when people are not finding kindness somehow to respond, it just stymies me. I'm just shocked at that the level of the lack of kindness people are showing at times. There's a lot of kindness going on, and then there's also a lot of lack of kindness. So think about that in your own experience, how you could introduce perhaps a bit more if you feel that's not really getting practiced as much. I want to bring up right now, I just want to show you the cover. This is Heart of the Path. This is Rinpoche and Lama on the cover. And if you're interested, if you have the book, and you can order the book from there, you can just go online at the archive, but pages 1 through 17, just the beginning, 1 through 17, it's not a whole lot to read, is why do we need a guru? So that could be really helpful to read for the next session. The whole book is great, but why, to break it down, why do we need a guru? I just want to read one passage from this. So proper proper devotion to the guru or virtuous friend is the root of all success, from success in this life up to enlightenment. Just as the trunk branches, leaves, and fruit of a tree depend upon its root. Or we can think that guru devotion is like the fuel in a car or a plane, without which the vehicle cannot take us where we want to go. Without guru devotion, nothing happens. No realizations, no liberation, no enlightenment. Just as without the root of a tree, there can be no trunk, branches, leaves, fruit. Everything up to enlightenment depends on guru devotion. Guru devotion is the root, not only of ultimate success, which is achieving full enlightenment, and bringing living beings to that ultimate happiness of liberation and enlightenment, but it's also a key to your temporary success and happiness. This practice is the foundation of the development of the whole path to enlightenment, as well as the foundation of all happiness. Since everything comes from the practice of guru devotion, it's called the root of the path. So let me talk about the qualities. What am I looking for in a teacher? How do I start? Some of you already know this. You're well versed in this. And then we're going to do a meditation. And this is a serious commitment, the guru-disciple relationship. So you don't want to just accept anybody, okay? You really want to check up, okay? And there's 10 qualities they talk about in general, finding that spiritual guide, the spiritual teacher, okay? The first 3 are related to something called the 3 higher trainings. The 3 higher trainings. Anybody? What are the 3 higher trainings?
Ethics, concentration, and wisdom.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, so ethical conduct is number 1. Okay, a mind subdued with the training in morality. Okay, so they're not somebody who's killing a lot of bugs around you. They don't lie. They don't steal. The mind becomes subdued from that, living in that kind of ethical conduct. Number 2, they have a mind pacified through the higher training of concentration. Okay? You may not know their mind and know their realizations. You're not going to know that as an ordinary being. I don't know what level of shine they might have, calm abiding, for instance. But, let's say if you're with them or you see them, can they focus on something for a while? Or are they totally scattered when they're teaching? Don't know where they're going next or what, or all over the place? Is there some level of a subdued general energy like that, pacified through the higher training of concentration? The third of 3 higher trainings, a mind thoroughly pacified through the higher training of wisdom. Now, this may not mean that they have a direct perception of emptiness, but they may have a very good intellectual understanding of emptiness. So those are 3 of the first 3 things of the 10 you want to look for, to have some feeling about, okay? And for instance, you can sit with Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He's doing videos right now from Kopan, and they're delightful to watch. He's surrounded with all these stuffed animals, and they're just endearing parts of them. They're just so sweet. So you can watch different ones, and they're being streamed on YouTube, and they're very easy to access. And if you watch Rinpoche talking, and he starts talking about emptiness, or you're on a retreat with Rinpoche, when he's teaching on emptiness, and if you close your eyes for a moment and just get into his words, and then after the teaching, try to meditate on emptiness of what he instructed, okay, it gives you a feeling that he seems to have the knowledge of emptiness. That's the way we start checking slowly. Seems to have a feeling that he knows what he's talking about. When I met him again, I said at Kopan, I met Rinpoche and had a meeting with him, but I got at first a feeling of he seemed to know about kindness to others that intrigued me. He just seemed to have so much space for others. But I didn't know. And then we went to Tibet. And I didn't go with him to Tibet, but I met up with the group there, and I wasn't even a Buddhist. And he would take us around all these places, but there's 60 people with him. and they're all clamoring to be right near him. And you had to listen through FM radios that you had a headset for. And I didn't have an FM radio, so I'd have to stand by somebody and listen through their speaker. Okay. So I was getting like half of everything, but I watched him constantly. I watched him and just saw he was always available for everybody. He was always helping everybody. And people could interrupt, and he was always totally focused, totally there with them in whatever experience they were having. It's really interesting. So I was just kept watching that and thinking, what kind of quality is that? What big heart. Amazing. You know, no kind of fear of people and looking at their worst or mistrusting people, or quite amazing. Those are the first three. Number 4 of the qualities. More qualities and knowledge than the student. That's the guru you want. More qualities and knowledge than the student. Well, we understand that because any teacher we've had has to know more than we do on the subject for us to be able to understand more about the subject. So that would make sense. Number 5, they have a wealth of scriptural knowledge and oral transmissions. That's great. And I love when teachers will tell you that this is where I got this teaching from. The Tibetans always start with, and I got this from my senior tutor, His Holiness will say, my senior tutor, His Holiness Ling Rinpoche, gave me these teachings on thought transformation. And I could actually say that I got these teachings from Lama Zopa Rinpoche on Guru devotion many, many times, but they always start with that lineage that you know it went all the way back to the Buddha. It's authentic. And there's a number of lungs, oral transmissions. They heard it, what's called ear whispered, meaning I heard it from their lips in person to my ears. Okay. Now Rinpoche is allowing, because of COVID, and occasionally they do this, if you're watching something live, some empowerments with His Holiness, some lungs, which is oral transmission with His Holiness or Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you can actually get that lung as long as you're watching and listening with full concentration live. Not to the recording, but when you're there live, they say you can get that transmission. So as long as you're hearing it live from their ears, from their lips to your ears, like that. That's the kind of oral tradition that we have. That's number 5, the wealth of scriptural knowledge and oral transmissions. Number 6, quality. So they have a direct perception of emptiness, perhaps. Okay. So not just an intellectual understanding, but they have a direct perception, direct experience of insight into the meaning of emptiness. Number 7, they have enthusiastic perseverance in teaching the Dharma. They love to teach. Number 8, they have skill in teaching according to the different levels of disciples. Okay, skill in teaching according to different levels of disciples. You'll see Lama Zopa Rinpoche in a teaching giving a little something for all different, for new students, for senior students, little something for everybody to hang on to. Incredible skill to do that. Number 9, motivation to teach out of loving kindness. They have a motivation to teach out of loving kindness. And number 10, they have great patience to teach and not feel discouraged. And you'll hear students ask the same question over and over again, and they have no trouble showing up to answer the question again. There are no stupid questions. There are no dumb questions or unnecessary questions when students start with, oh, this question doesn't really matter, but there's no problem with that. I've heard Rinpoche just explain an entire teaching in detail, incredibly thoroughly. And then when they take questions at the end, somebody asks, like, how do I do that practice? And he just explained it. And Rinpoche will once again go through in a briefer way of what exactly that student needs to hear. Pretty remarkable. So they have that patience, okay? If you cannot find a guru with all those 10 qualities, at least you'd like them to have 5. These are the 5 that we would narrow it down to. A mind subdued with the first 3. A mind subdued with the higher training of ethics, concentration, and wisdom, as well as great love and great compassion, and if possible, a realization of emptiness. Okay, so those would be kind of the more essential. And then if you can't find that, maybe you find a minimum of that he or she puts future lives before this life because of being free from worldly concerns. And they put others before themselves because of their great compassion. So the very fundamental that you'd like to find is that compassionate, spacious heart, and that they're somehow living the Dharma of really much more focused on the future lives, making imprints for that, purifying negativities for that, like that. And then talking about the qualities of a disciple. How do we want to show up as the right student, as the right disciple? For Lama Zopa Rinpoche, this is hard for people. It comes about bearing hardship. I've heard this right out of his mouth in one of our retreats many years ago. We were having a retreat at Vajrapani in 1997, and about 80 people came from around the world, all squished into the Gompa there. And then Rinpoche was a couple days, showed up a little later than the beginning. And so for 2 days, everybody was hanging out, and old friends from across the globe, and people hanging out, and there's picnic tables there, and everybody having lunch, and we weren't really doing full sessions, and everybody was having a great time, catching up. And we were slowly getting into introductions of the retreat and the practice, and when Rinpoche was coming to give this initiation like that. Rinpoche turned up, finally, and seemed very, very stern on the throne, not very happy with us. And then started with a little bit of a scolding and said, what I'm most interested in. And he said, this is retreat. And he was really and he said, this is retreat. This is not a picnic. You know, we were like, whoo. And then the next words he said were, what I'm most interested in my disciples is how they bear hardship. And it really went right through me. Because I thought, who of all of my gurus cares so much for us? Who cares like that? So this is not about sadism. This is not about somebody who wants you to suffer. But through bearing hardship, okay, which is actually the real meaning of forbearance, which is the real antidote to anger and hostility and hatred. Forbearance. You know, we think the opposite of anger, the antidote is patience, okay? But it's actually about bearing up under harsh circumstances. So the real guru wants you to be able to transform that suffering. That's all about Rinpoche's teaching. Suffering is going to show up, and it shows up again and again and again. We're having a little bit of a global meltdown right now as well. And I don't think it's going to get a lot better. I didn't realize I'd be living in my lifetime in a science fiction film. But all the photos I was getting recently from my friends in California of the orange skies at 11 in the morning with all the cars with their headlights on because it's dark. It's like the film Blade Runner, if you've ever seen that. It's like a science fiction film. I didn't think I'd be living in this in my lifetime. But this is on the planet right now. Okay, so hardship will come. How's your mind? And what Rinpoche wants to make sure is that our mind is prepared for hardship, because that's an immense way of purifying to get us free faster. So it really laid a mark on me, and it really impressed me. And I think about it a lot when I feel lazy and I feel undisciplined and I'm wasting time. And I think about his teachings. And so one of his fundamental practices, as you probably know, is this morning practice. I'm going to copy for you because this is a little exercise I'm giving you personally, but this is really from Rinpoche. It's not about me. And I hope I can find this. Yeah, here we go. I'm going to copy this. Many of you are already doing this. This is just from my guru, from Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And Rinpoche likes us. There's this practice, and it's a method. It's called the method for transforming a suffering life into happiness. Okay? It's basically a scan of the Lamrim. It's some verses. And then it goes into mind training verses. And then there's some blessing the mantras, some blessing the speech mantras that help to accentuate your day. It's something I do at the very beginning of my day. I do it sometimes in bed because I've memorized it. So I just get going, I wake up and I start doing it to get that layer, that foundation for my day. Many of you, again, are already doing this. This is Rinpoche's instruction now for us to please do this practice. It's better to do early in the day. And again, it just sets the mind up with some scanning of the Lamrim, just some foundation of how do I want to traverse the path. But even his title, again, the method to transform a suffering mind. That's what he wants. So think about how you're bearing a hardship and like that. It's really powerful from Rinpoche. And this is Rinpoche's quote: "When the qualified guru meets with a disciple who is able to bear hardships, enlightenment is as easy as if made by hand." So think about that. Here's the disciple. Then we're going to do what the qualities of a disciple, and then we're going to do a meditation. 3 main qualities you'd like to have as a disciple: being open-minded and unbiased. Being open-minded and unbiased. Think about how you approach a teaching. And I know I've shown up at certain teachings with, oh, I've already heard this, right? Then you're not open to hearing something new come in. And more I notice, I don't care who the teacher is, my Western friends teaching monks and nuns, lay people, and if I show up open and unbiased, I always learn something. I always learn something. Number 2 quality, having the intelligence to know right from wrong. That's important. Obviously, you understand that. And number 3, a sincere interest in the Dharma. Is that how you're showing up with those 3 qualities? Okay. Open-minded and unbiased. And we often think about how do we show up at teachings, and they talk about the 3 levels of the pot. Teapot, as you're very familiar in England with teapots. Okay? We've got teapots that have the lid on too tightly. Nothing gets in. You show up at a teaching, you're falling asleep. You're not interested in teaching. One example that just happened to me a few years ago at Light of the Path retreat, Lama Zopa Rinpoche went over the 7-point Vairocana posture. Some of you may have listened to this teaching or been there. The 7-point Vairocana posture. All I had to hear was those terms, and my mind just kind of closed up. Oh yeah, I've already heard that. It's the first thing we hear about meditation practice. 7-point Vairocana posture. And then suddenly I started, fortunately, listening more deeply. And it was like I'd never heard the teaching before. It was like an entirely new teaching. So you never know when the most mundane teaching that you've heard a million times, if you wake up and start listening, suddenly there's something new that you forgot or you hadn't heard before. It's really powerful. Okay. So I'd like you to review this week the qualities of the qualified guru. How are you showing up as a disciple? Can you enhance a little bit of your discipleship in a sense? But I'd like to do this. This is one of the meditations right now that we're going to do that go along with this class. And this is a meditation on why we need a spiritual guide. Why we need a spiritual guide that is part of the Google Docs that you'll find. So if you can do this practice once again at least, or if you want to do a little bit every day, it'll deepen this experience for you. And if you haven't found a teacher yet, it'll certainly start leading you in that direction. So I'd like you right now to just sit comfortably. Once again, back to that comfortable posture. And you can lightly close your eyes, just recollecting on your motivation and resetting that motivation for this meditation. And just bringing your awareness to your breath to just settle the mind. I'd like you to first think of examples of how we need a teacher to learn almost everything in life. Think about from the time you were born till your present day. What are the different things you learned from different teachers? What if you didn't have that teacher? How would it have gone for you? Think about significant teachers that you've had this life. Think of the kindness they showed you. Think of the benefits you gained from their efforts and good qualities. Now think about the great importance of having a spiritual teacher, one who can teach you how to practice, what to practice, what to avoid, to lead you on the Dharma path. A teacher who leads you out of samsara, the cycle of suffering. One who can lead you to ultimate freedom of full enlightenment. Think about this, entering territory where you have never been before. Think about that guide. A guide who has the experience and who has already gone along this path. Think about that importance of that spiritual teacher. And contemplate now the kind of spiritual teacher you would like to find. And think about these 10 qualities I just mentioned. So subdued with ethical conduct, concentration, and wisdom. That they have more qualities and knowledge more than you do. A wealth of scriptural knowledge and transmissions. They have a direct perception of emptiness, perhaps. Enthusiastic perseverance in teaching the Dharma. They have a skill in teaching different levels of disciples. They're motivated to teach out of loving kindness. And they have great patience to teach and never feel discouraged. What sort of teacher would you like to find? And can you generate in your heart right now, your heart and mind, an enthusiastic aspiration to find a qualified teacher or to enhance that relationship that you already have? Through really opening your heart, through further scrutiny and checking, and feel the confidence and joy in finding a precious spiritual friend like this who can guide you on your spiritual path. So please relax. Slowly open your eyes. Just note any observations, anything that comes up in your mind for a moment. So just in our last 10 minutes or so, we'll do some dedications. Questions right now of anything we've been talking about so far. Okay, everybody.
I'm wondering whether David might want to ask a question.
Sorry?
I'm not sure whether David wants to ask a question.
Okay, David? Yeah, please unmute.
No, he was just praying.
No,
I think. Sorry, David.
Okay, so what I would say is, if it's possible, do some of the readings that, if you'd like, you'll get much more out of this. Some of you have done this course before. For some of you, it's new. That meditation is part of the Google Docs. I would try to do that at least once this week. If you'd like to really start thinking about if you're looking for a teacher and don't have a teacher, and you're really trying to find the teacher. If you already have a teacher, how's that relationship going? What has happened that might have turned things for you? Can you reflect on times you've been further away from the teacher and felt separated? What was that like for you versus when you felt extremely close to the teacher? What was happening in your life? What sort of activities and things like that? Okay, I'm gonna share my screen, and I'm gonna bring in, these are the dedications that Rinpoche's recommended now for the COVID practices and things. And it's just a good thing to do these dedications now anyway. So I thought we could read these together. And I will share my screen. Can everybody see that? Okay, great. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So feel free if you'd like to join in, and I'd like to dedicate whatever positive energy we've created from this time. And I want to thank all of you for showing up. I'd like to thank Stuart and the Center of Compassion in Liverpool for hosting me, and all the people that are connected that have made this possible. And I'd like to dedicate all this precious merit and good energy that we've created, whatever we have created, to our own well-being, moving us along that path to quick enlightenment so we can really be of the most benefit for others, as a good support for you during this interesting time on the planet. I'd like to dedicate for all the fires to be put out on the West Coast and everywhere in the world immediately, for the COVID virus and all other diseases to be eliminated immediately from the planet. I'd like to dedicate for more enlightened leadership to be elected this year in the United States, and for a real subduing of all of our hostility and divisiveness. And for some people right now needing additional prayers, Jim, who passed away a couple days ago, who is the partner of a longtime Dharma student, Peter Kay, who's dying of pancreatic cancer in Vermont, and Norma Harris, who's got stage 4 colon cancer, and Cindy Finfrock, my cousin, also stage 4 colon cancer in this area in Pennsylvania. And for Kathleen Raffat, who was on pilgrimage with me a couple of years ago to Laudo. She's recovering from very serious cancer surgery in San Diego, California. So for all these beings, many of you know many who have recently died or suffering, may they immediately be released from all the suffering. May the precious supreme bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. However many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed from all sicknesses. May all the sicknesses, without exception, of transmigratory beings never occur again. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma by completing the qualities of the state of the grounds and paths. May I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. By the force of the victorious one, Tsongkhapa, acting as our direct Mahayana virtuous friend in all our lives, may we never turn away for even a second from the pure path highly admired by the victorious ones. Like the earth, water, fire, and wind, medicines, and monastery firewood, may I always be enjoyed by all sentient beings as they like and without resistance. May I cherish all sentient beings like my own life. May I cherish them much more than myself. May all their negative karma ripen on me. May all virtue ripen on them. As long as any sentient being has not been liberated from samsara, May I abide in samsara to help them, even though I could achieve highest enlightenment. And the most important one is with emptiness, dedication, due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas, the numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side. May I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praise is the best, by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. For His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. For Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the 3 sublime ones, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. So thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you next week. And if you're interested also, there is a prayer-a-thon that goes on every, I believe it's Friday night to Saturday, 24 hours. Our monks and nuns of the IMI, the International Mahayana Institute, are conducting these half-hour to hour-long. You can jump in at any time of the COVID practices that Rinpoche's recommended that we do for now. So it's a really short little insert to your day. I'm leading one that is 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday, your time. So you can get the, I think you can find it. It's also on YouTube. I don't have the link right now, but you can find it maybe on the FPMT site or something like that. I don't know if Venerable Damsha, you have the link, but.
What I can do is I send the link over to Stuart after.
Yeah,
and then
I'll
you
share
can
it.
share that, because some of us in the morning press anyway. So if I send it to Stuart,
Yeah.
you can send it out. I think we do it like that.
I'll
And
send it out.
thank you very, very much for leading those prayers, Venerable.
And I think I've got, actually, absolutely, yeah, no problem at all. Here's one link. I think this might hook you into it as well if you want to copy that Zoom link down. But anyway, lovely to see all of you. Thank you so much again, Stuart and everyone. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, Vanessa.